young man and said, you know what, we don't think he's living up to his potential. And they took an interest in me, and I got back on the right track, and I became the first in my family to go to college, and I'm here tonight because of 2 teachers. So I'm the biggest believer that we change lives, that we can change lives. But, you know, we're often in public education asked to change every ill, okay? And so what's interesting is I have this diagram, this pyramid that I show all the time. And it's this big expectations going up, resources going down, public trust going this way. And so we're just expected to deal with it all and solve it all. And if there's this issue out there, if there's this identified, get the schools to do it. Don't give them any resources, pass a law, okay? This issue, get the schools to do it, pass it. So, you know, I absolutely understand why sometimes our teachers say, when do I get to teach? Okay? And when do I get to teach? Everybody says it's about the 3 R's. When do I get to do that? However, okay, we are a school. And we do teach. And part of what we should teach is how for young people to be good citizens and have good character. And I think I've always believed that that is an obligation that we have. And when you, from the very time we get your little ones, we start to reinforce good character education, meeting social emotional learning needs, to talk about what it means to operate within a culture of respect, where you respect every individual. Every individual has worth. So that it's not so much about the sexting or the issues, because it's just, that's not the way you treat somebody. And then we also have to ask for our parents and our community to help with that as well. See, we get kids for about 30-35% of the day, okay, and of the entire year. The rest of the time, they're exposed to a lot of different other education, okay? It's not formal education, but it's education nonetheless. It's what they watch on TV, the movies they go to, the music that they listen to, what they're getting exposed to outside of school. All that plays an impact too. And so we've got to change the national conversation around what's acceptable. Because when you listen, you know, and I would say I try not to be old school like that, because, you know, as I said the other night, there's a song back in the day, and I won't ask you, don't shake your heads like you remember it, because then you're going to tell us people how old you are. Okay, remember that song, I Found My Thrill on Blueberry Hill? Okay, what do you think they're talking about? So it's not like our music today, but that's what our kids are exposed to. And so we've got to realize that. We've got to be very intentional in schools, but we can't do it alone. So we have to ask our parents to help too. And so through our parent university and other parent programs, we need to educate our parents about things like hazing, bullying, sexting. You know, again, so for so many of us, you know, we have double standards. My wife called me out on one the other day because my son had his first girlfriend. I was proud dad. Hey, you go, Zach. 7th grade, got a girlfriend, good to go. And then when my daughter was talking about this boy, and she's in 10th grade, okay? That's a double standard. I realize that. But we can't turn around and tell our boys it's okay to treat women disrespectfully and then turn around and want my daughter to. So we have to have that conversation as a society. We'll do our part in school, but we really need the community to help with it too. Is Tim still here? Okay. Tim is one of our board members and probably knows so much more about sports regulations in the state of North Carolina than I know. And so I don't want to ever give you an answer that is my best thinking when you've got someone who's a real expert in that. But what I'll say is this. I'll talk about lacrosse, and I'm going to get into really what you're asking. So as a high school principal, we had lacrosse. It was an actual recognized varsity sport at the school when I was in Maryland. I was proud of my lacrosse players. It's a tough sport. Most people don't get it, but you know, it's a lot of work. And those young ladies were as dedicated and passionate about their sport as anybody else. And we celebrated them. And I made sure I tried to get to as many lacrosse games as I got to football and basketball. And so I think as we have more and more demand for lacrosse, it's something that we're going to have to think about in terms of adding it to our programs that we have as recognized sports programs. You know, we live in a country where there's an adage and a motto, nothing's free. Okay, so at some point, whether it shifts lacrosse from a activity to a sport, somebody has to pay for it. Okay, and so if it gets over to a recognized CMS varsity sport, that doesn't mean that it's now somehow the fees are waived. It just means now it becomes part of our budget. Now, I'm going to editorialize here for a minute. You say you're from North Carolina, you've been here all your life. Okay? In North Carolina, we say we really value education. It's really important. And I think that's demonstrated through some amazing institutions of higher education. I mean, you have to be, there's a state that's shown a higher commitment to higher ed. I don't know, and I came from Virginia, that's pretty good, but man, in North Carolina, some amazing institutions of higher education. But this is also a state that has traditionally spent in the lower 40s in terms of public education. That 50 states, we've somewhere been between 40 and 50. Okay, that range right there. I think we're currently at about 44 out of 50 states. Now, my point to you is that that's a choice that we've decided to make. You as native North Carolinians, myself as a new North Carolinian, we've decided that public education, we're okay with it being 44th out of 50 states. So that means that we also, because one of our biggest things that we do is pay our hard-working teachers, we pay our teachers 45th out of 50 states, okay, because that's the biggest driver of the budget. So when it comes to meetings like this, and you're going to see a commitment from CMS as we do our budgeting processes here. We are going to have a number of town hall meetings. We're going to talk about the budgeting process. We're going to talk about some areas that we think we need to spend more on. We're going to talk about areas perhaps we should spend less on. And we're going to talk about how much money we have to spend. And we can certainly have a lacrosse conversation. But I'll share with you some things I've heard in these town hall meetings. We need more nurses. We need more teachers. We need more magnets. We need to add lacrosse. And so very rarely do I come to these meetings and hear what we're going to cut. And so what we end up having to do is say, this is ultimately, we're going to advocate for everything we can that meets the needs of CMS, but ultimately from the county and the state, we'll get a number, and then we're going to have to make a decision. And then I'm going to invite the public to play a role in that. But it can't always be add. You're going to also have to be part of the tell us what we should take away. And you have to do the same exercise that we have to do, because see, we can't just always say we're going to listen to the people that show up to the meetings. Because there's a lot of people that can't get to the meetings, or there's a lot of people that we don't hear from. So we've got to be a better school district than just we're going to be reacting to people who have the signs and show up. That we have to listen to our entire community. So I know that's not what you were asking, but since it was the last question, I wanted to offer that up. You were going to see a greater commitment from the part of our school district to be part of the budgeting process. But understand, okay, I think it was George Allen talking about sports who once said, I gave my coach an unlimited budget and he exceeded it. Okay? So we don't get an unlimited budget, we don't get to exceed it. So we're doing the best we can with what we have, but we will look at what are the key priorities of our school district, we'll budget towards that, and if it is a commitment to lacrosse, then so be it, but we're going to have to talk about what that means in terms of what we don't fund. But in terms of how we get it to be a recognized sport, then between myself and if we'll make sure that gets answered for you, I promise you.